Danganronpa is a truly weird franchise. Throughout the games, we get to meet a multitude of people ranging from the strongest person on Earth to the luckiest person on Earth, and luckiest person on Earth part 2. But among this vast cast of characters, some stick out like sore thumbs, not strictly just because of their designs, but also because of their talents and backstories. But even though these characters are really unique, some sadly don't get as much recognition as others. So today, I wanted to talk a bit about one of my own personal favorite oddballs of the Danganronpa franchise. That is why in this video, we'll be analyzing Kirumi Tojo, the ultimate maid. Just as a quick heads up, close to, if not everything in this video is solely based on speculation. So, if you disagree with me at any point, do comment down below. I'll make sure to read and reply to every comment. Now then, put your seatbelts on, beware of spoilers for Danganronpa V3, and let's go. As per usual, let's start with the simple stuff. Kirumi's appearance and personality. Her character emanates this weird energy that just has Danganronpa written all over it. It's such a weird, almost fantasy-like design, but with a calm and really not vivid at all color scheme. But I mean, this applies to every character, and it's kind of what makes them ultimate, you know? In a big group of normal people, you'd easily be able to spot her, but when she's in a group with so many other weird, quirky designs are the norm, she just kinda blends in with the background, due to her questionably grass-colored hair and her monochrome dress, which might make her a bit more forgettable in the grand scheme of things for most players, sadly. But to assume she's bland because of unfortunate circumstances would not just be rude, first of all, excuse you, but also completely wrong. As you can very clearly see from her clothing, Kirumi is a maid, and as a maid, her goal is to complete people's requests. This is something she herself says a few times throughout the game, but when you're an ultimate, it's never as straightforward as I am the ultimate maid, I do maid stuff. Kirumi doesn't specify on one specific type of job, rather she tries to complete any request that is asked of her, and these can range from very simple tasks such as cooking a meal, all the way to eliminating an enemy nation. But if you remember correctly, the latter task I mentioned was not actually completed, or rather she refused to do it. Kirumi will only accept requests that she thinks she will be able to successfully pull off. Since she only accepts missions which she is sure she will manage to accomplish, she has a lot of determination and a strong-willed personality. But this is all just surface level stuff. The really interesting stuff comes when you decide to hang out with her. Let's dive a bit more into the iceberg that is Kirumi Tojo. From the very first time you hang out with Kirumi as Shuichi, you can notice that Kirumi seems to think of everything as an order. When Shuichi asks her to hang out, she replies with a question. Would you like me to serve you by keeping you company? This by itself is pretty weird, but not enough to properly start speculating. But the thing is, this is not all. In the same free time event, literally no longer than 30 seconds later, Shuichi invites Kirumi to the cafeteria so they can both go have a drink. Kirumi agrees to go, but when she gets there, first she asks him if he would prefer tea or coffee, and immediately after his response, she went and prepared it for him. Okay, you get the idea. Throughout the free time event, Kirumi assumes a multitude of stuff to be a request, when it's really just a question or a suggestion. But why is this? Why would someone, even if they are the so-called ultimate maid, just associate everything to an order? Well, it's never downright explained, so I have my own theory. The foundation for this assumption is actually given to us in the first free time event again. Jesus Christ, just how much stuff can you fit in one fucking scene? Pardon my language. Anyways, Shuichi asks Kirumi the following question, a bit before heading to the cafeteria. Didn't you chat with your classmates during lunch breaks or after school? To which she responds very calmly, I had somewhat. Why'd you ask? Again, in the same free time event, after giving Shuichi his tea, Kirumi just kind of awkwardly stands there, waiting for him to drink. Shuichi, coming in clutch asking the really important questions, asks her, Kirumi, are you not gonna sit? And to that she replies, but if I said as well, then I cannot serve you. From this, what I take is that Kirumi was raised to be a maid. That would not only explain why she always thinks of everything as a request, but it also explains these last two responses. If you add 2 and 2 together, you might be able to reach the same conclusion I did. Keep in mind, this is purely my point of view, but to me, it feels like it's being hinted at that even at school during lunch break, Kirumi would just serve her classmates instead of eating, like everyone else did. And throughout the free time events, this theory just keeps getting more and more likely. During her third free time event, we're finally past the first fucking one, Shuichi asks Kirumi, "It seems like you're prepared for anything, Kirumi, but is that expected from you?" And her reply is, "If I wish to fulfill all my master's needs, then of course." This in a way reminds me of another character's backstory. It's like such an old song that we can sing along in harmony, and nowhere is it stronger than in Hope Speak Academy. You see, even though Kirumi does not have that big of an impact in the overall story, in a sense she reminds me quite a lot of Izuru Kamukura. If my theory is correct, then they were both raised, or rather created, in order to be artificially perfect. This kind of mindset, of course, is very dangerous. So they both have very twisted ways of viewing hope and despair. While Izuru perceives hope as talent and despair as dullness, Kirumi sees it as success and failure. She is expected to be great at everything she does. And that's the main difference between her and Izuru. Since he was created in a laboratory, he is way more capable than any human could dream of being, whilst Kirumi is of course restrained by her human limitations, and even she acknowledges this. Kirumi's whole being revolves around helping people and selflessly devoting herself to others, so much so that in the last free time event, she calls herself a stray maid for not serving someone since she is trapped in the school, and she explains that it is incredibly dishonorable. Either my last master disposed of me, or no person needs my assistance. That is the same as having no existence. And that last sentence just kind of perfectly ties my theory together. Now that we're done with her speculated past, let's move on to the next and last chapter.
Hold on!
Imagine this scenario. You are out for a walk one day and you stumble upon a railroad with 2 tracks. One of them has 5 people there, and the other has a singular one. You suddenly hear a train coming at full speed in the lane that has 5 people standing. Now you notice that close to you is a lever, and this lever can move the train's path from one side to another. Do you choose to let 5 people die for the sake of one other person? Or is one singular life less valuable than 5 lives to you? Well, thankfully none of us are in that situation. It'd be completely out of pocket to imagine that such a thing could be possible, right? Well, not really. You see, when you take a closer look at chapter 2 from Danganronpa V3, you'll start to notice that Kirumi was kind of put in the same situation, but to a much larger degree. Just substitute the 5 people by the population of Japan, and instead of that one person who was alone, but they're a group of 13 high schoolers that you've been living with for a week and have formed friendships with. Now, this is where I want to discuss Kirumi's selfless devotion. We've heard of it, we've mentioned it, but what is it really? Well, essentially it's the capability to put others above yourself. Well then, the choice is pretty obvious, right? 13 people is less than the population of Japan. Well, you're not wrong, but that's why the trolley problem is not as straightforward as you might think. It's not really about measuring the value of lives, it's more of a psychological test. Would you rather let 5 random people die, knowing fully well that you could have avoided it? Or would you rather live with the guilt of killing an innocent person by your direct actions? Because, you see, in the first option, they would have died even if you weren't there, and the one person would have survived. But if you choose the second option, the one person's death is entirely your fault. Vsauce made a video on this some time ago, please do go give it a watch, it's generally so worth it. Anyways, shilling aside, this is where her selfless devotion really comes into play. It's not that the 126 million people living in Japan matter more than 13 high schoolers, it's that she can put her own personal guilt and loss aside for the sake of the supposed greater good. And this isn't even speculation, she herself admits to it after telling her true intentions to the class, saying, "I would bear being seen as evil for the sake of my nation and its people." I know many hold a certain grudge against Kirumi, since she makes herself look pretty bad by admitting she would not mind killing her friends for the sake of not failing a mission. But I hope this video made you feel at least a bit more sympathetic towards Kirumi. She is genuinely such a well-written character when you take a closer look at it. This has been Dust. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you on the next one. Subscribe!